What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, what I'm going to be doing is showing you all how to improve your aim fast in Fortnite Chapter 3. As you probably know by now, having good aim in Fortnite is absolutely critical, especially in Chapter 3 where most players know how to build, edit, and piece control, and aim is really one of those main things that separates the good players from the great players. So in this video, we'll be going over all the best maps, strategies, and overall tips that you can use to improve your aim fast in Chapter 3 and put yourself ahead of the competition. But before we hop into this video, be sure to drop a like if it helps you out, and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. And if you'd like to help out a bit extra, then consider using code TECHO in the Fortnite item shop. It's completely free for you and it really does help me out a ton. But with that said, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So hopping right into it, guys, the first map that I want to show you all is going to be the Zenex 60 aim map. Now, the reason that I like this map so much is because it's very simple and easy to navigate. It has very effective and well-built scenarios, and it also has scenarios that involve editing. And as you know, if you do a lot of box fights, being able to edit into a shot is an absolutely critical skill to have. So real quick, I'm just going to go over each of the scenarios. That way you can get a good idea for what's going on in this map. To start off, you're going to load in and the weapons are already going to be in your inventory, as well as this little remote which you can use to teleport back to spawn whenever you're done with the scenario. From there, we have three different categories of aim training: AR, shotgun, and SMG. Starting off with the SMG scenario, this one is pretty unique as it uses a chicken to basically simulate a target. So basically, your goal is just to track it and constantly keep your crosshair on it as it moves around. From there, we have the shotgun edit and shoot scenario, which is pretty much just a scenario that allows you to practice editing into shots, and more specifically, it allows you to practice editing a wall to get an angle on a randomly placed target. I think my favorite part of this scenario is whether you use the little orb or the sentry target, the target instantly respawns into a randomly generated spot within the same tile, so you constantly have to go for different angles and edits instead of just doing the same thing over and over. From there, the 180-degree area is meant to simulate all sorts of angles that you can take with a shotgun. Honestly, it's pretty self-explanatory. And finally, the reaction flick area is basically just a wall which disappears and displays a randomly placed target. Your goal is basically just to flick and hit the target as fast as possible. Finally, getting into the AR focus scenarios, we're going to begin with flicks. The first flick scenario is basically a scenario where targets spawn at random and your goal is to hit them as fast as you can, just like the shotgun scenario we went over. The AR tracking scenario is similar to the SMG one in the sense that it's basically just the same scenario with the chicken but from a lot further away. And finally, the flicks 2 scenario is basically where you shoot one of the squares at the end of the tunnel and then it'll spawn a target. So from there, your goal is basically just to flick straight from the square to the target and then go back and shoot the square again. And finally, guys, there's a free build section that Zenex 60 added to this map. I guess it's kind of helpful if you're using the map as part of your warm-up, but obviously in terms of aim training, we're not really using it, but it is good to have and know it's there just in case you need it. So with all that said, guys, since the day I learned about Zenex 60's aim map, it's definitely become one of my favorite aim maps in the game, so I absolutely recommend you try it out if you're looking to step up your game in terms of aim training. If you want to give it a shot, the code's going to be up on screen right now. Moving on from that though, and getting into our second map, this one's going to be Raiders 1v1 aim duels. If you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you probably know by now that Raiders map is one of my favorites when it comes to improving your aim. All you got to do is jump into the map, use the matchmaking portal, and you're going to be put up against a random player. From there, you can choose your HP and then select a scenario. Once you select your scenario and you're both in this little area here, grab whatever weapon you and your opponent want to use and then just start it up. You've got all sorts of scenario options like shotgun flicks, SMG tracking, and even gliders. So honestly, although I have shown Raiders map plenty of times on the channel and you may feel like it's getting a bit old by now, it still does remain a classic for aim training, and I absolutely recommend it to everyone trying to improve their aim, especially when it comes to close range. So with that said, I'll throw up the code on screen right now. Finally, guys, getting into our last map of this video before we get into our general tips, and this is going to be another classic map that still works wonders for all sorts of players, and that's going to be the Skavak Aim Trainer by my friend Donwazi. If you've ever seen Kovac's Aim Trainer, then you can basically think of the Skavak Aim Trainer as Kovac's in Fortnite Creative, hence the reason why its name is literally just Kovac's backwards. The map has tons of different scenarios, far too many to cover in this video alone, and they range from ARs to shotguns to SMGs and even snipers in all sorts of different environments. As I said before, it does have quite a few scenarios, so I can't cover them all in this video, but you can see a few of them in the background gameplay. The Skavak Aim Trainer has been around since probably the first months of Creative being out, and it still remains to this day one of the best maps when it comes to getting better aim fast. So with that said, if you want to give this map a shot, I'll toss up the code on screen right now. So now that we've gone over my top 3 maps for improving your aim, the next thing I want to do in this video is really just go over some general tips that I have for aim training, specifically tips that you can utilize to improve your aim fast and make your aim training far more efficient. So my first tip regarding aim training is going to be to aim train during your warm-up rather than mid-session or when you're ready to hop off. Honestly, my main reason for this is just that aim training during your warm-up keeps it simple. Obviously, you know exactly when you're going to aim train and you don't have to worry about finding time or having to get off the game to do your aim training in the middle of a session. As well as that, it really helps to keep you consistent when you know exactly when you're going to aim train, and finally, it sort of helps with getting warmed up as well, since you're also getting your aim and crosshair movement primed before you get into the actual game. So overall, for all those reasons, I personally believe that the beginning of your warm-up, first thing when you get on, is absolutely the best time to aim train. It allows you to get warmed up and get your aim primed, and it also helps you stay consistent and not have to worry about finding time to train your aim later in the session. As you probably know, aim training isn't exactly the most exciting or entertaining thing to do in Fortnite, but it is very important, so getting it done early just makes everything a lot simpler. So moving on to my next tip to improve your aim, and that's going to be using updated weapons. It's a fairly simple tip, but honestly, this one is something that I see a lot of players messing up on. And just so you know, all the maps that I covered in this video, at least at the time of recording, use updated weapons, so that's nothing to worry about if you're using these maps. But the main issue I see with a lot of players is that whenever they're playing creative just for fun, or sometimes when they're aim training, they tend to use outdated weapons. For example, even though I do expect them to come back sometime in the near future, a lot of players still use the original pump and regular AR, even though at the time of making this video, neither of them are in the game. The thing you need to understand is that for the most part, two weapons of the same category will play completely differently. For example, if you compare the classic AR to any AR in the game right now, you'll find a different fire rate, different damage, different recoil, and even a different type of sight if you're talking about the MK7. So in order to stay on track with the meta and just keep everything nice and simple, make sure that you're using up-to-date weapons whenever you aim train, and especially when you're doing any sort of 1v1 or fighting in creative as well. Finally guys, getting into my last tip of today's video, and this one is simply going to be to aim train consistently. Honestly, the biggest mistake that I see players make when it comes to aim training is they'll build a whole new aim training routine. They'll be super excited and grind it out for a few days, and then they're going to fall off the wagon and just stop doing it. Most players are in this constant loop of starting a new aim training regimen, stopping it after a few days, and then coming back after a few months to try it again with absolutely no progress. That's probably the biggest thing that holds people back from improving their aim, simply being inconsistent. So the biggest thing that I can recommend you all do is that whatever aim training regimen you use, whatever method you use, whether it's the maps in this video, Kovacs, or something entirely different, just make sure that you're consistent. Even if it's 5 or 10 minutes each time you get on, simply doing some form of aim training on a consistent basis will help you improve the game and get better aim much faster than you'd expect. But with all that said guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to improve your aim in Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 1. If this video helped you out, then be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. As well as that, if you'd like to help out a bit extra, then consider using code TECHO in the Fortnite item shop. It's 100% free for you and it really helps your boy out a bunch. But with that said, thank you all for watching this video and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.